Hey, what up everybody? This is Ari Temkin, and today we're going to spend some time focusing on two positional groups that the Cowboys should look at in free agency. But first, I want to remind you to hit that subscribe button and always ring the bell. That way you're notified every single time I post a new video. Make sure to post your comments below and tell me which positional group you would spend the most money on in free agency this offseason. It's worth noting that the Cowboys will have roughly $82 million in available cap space to spend this offseason. Now, presumably, they're going to give an extension to Dak Prescott, who will eat up anywhere between $30 and $35 million. Let's just say $33 million. They're also presumably going to be spending some money on Amari Cooper. Let's just say somewhere in the neighborhood of $18 to $20 million, so we'll say $19 million. And I think the Cowboys should absolutely re-sign Byron Jones, even though he doesn't have the big interception numbers. He's one of the best cover corners in the NFL, and I think at a price between $12 and $14 million. Now, I brought three guys that I think the Cowboys should re-sign. One name I didn't mention that you're probably thinking about is Robert Quinn, who had a tremendous season as a pass rusher for the Cowboys. I don't think the Cowboys are going to re-sign him for two reasons. One being, he's probably going to command much more money in free agency this offseason than he commanded last year in free agency. That goes without saying. And the Cowboys want to do this. They want to go out and find diamonds in the rough and then turn those guys into premier players that then will leave in free agency and then net the Cowboys back a compensatory draft pick. So between Dak Prescott, Amari Cooper, and Byron Jones, you've now basically eaten up $66 million in available cap space if you're 82, which means we're talking about $16 million in available cap space. So the Cowboys aren't going to have a ton of flexibility when it comes to some of the higher priced free agents, which, if you've been following along to the Cowboys in recent history, they don't do anyways. The Cowboys are built much in the same way that Bill Parcells built them. Why? Because Stephen Jones, who head ups their personnel department, learned everything he knew about building a roster through Bill Parcells. And much of that is about drafting well, developing talent, and then giving those players that you drafted and developed contracts in free agency. Now, it's going to be interesting to see how much this mentality of the Cowboys changes with Mike McCarthy. Now, make no mistake about it, McCarthy will have a say in personnel, much in the same way that Jason Garrett had a lot of say in the personnel of this roster over his time as head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. Jerry likes to lean on the expertise of all of the coaching staff in order to make the best selections in the draft and in free agency. But the two position groups that I want to focus in on today are two important position groups that the Cowboys have basically said they don't care about, which is a run-stuffing defensive tackle and safety. Let's start with defensive tackle. This has always been an important component of Mike McCarthy and Mike Nolan's defense, the new defensive coordinator. Now, two names that would be fantastic for the Cowboys that might be out of their price range would be Javon Hargrave of the Pittsburgh Steelers and DJ Reader of the Houston Texans. These are two guys that are going to command big-time money in free agency, which is why I'm not entirely sure I should even be mentioning them. But it's worth mentioning because these are two young players that still have the prime of their careers, coming off great seasons, both versatile in terms of being able to apply pressure on passing downs, but also really good run stuffers in the middle of a defensive line. Hargrave is interesting to me because he stepped in this year for Stephon Tuitt after he suffered an injury, played more snaps he's ever played in his entire career, and really showed that he can be a versatile pass rusher in the middle, but also a guy that's been consistent over the course of his career as a run stuffer. A couple other names to know. How about Gerald McCoy and Ndamukong Suh? A couple of big name guys that are older players, both coming off contracts in which they got paid about $10 million over one season. Both could be looking at similar situations in free agency this year, maybe a little bit less than that, but here's guys with proven track records that have, McCoy was able to stay healthy this past year and have been consistent, especially in the latter stages of their careers. One name to watch for, and this is just typical Dallas Cowboys, is a guy that they could buy low on. And that's something the Cowboys have done really well in recent history. A name to watch for in terms of a buy low candidate would be Mike Daniels, who at one time was one of the best interior linemen in the entire National Football League under Mike McCarthy with the Green Bay Packers. Spent his entire career with the Green Bay Packers before signing a one-year contract with Detroit last season. He was limited to just 9 games this season and wasn't very good. So that fact alone will consistently alter his value, but rightfully so, because are you going to count on a guy at this stage of his career that's certainly on the downside of 30 and only played in 9 games last year and 10 games the year before that? Again, there's obviously the familiarity there with Mike McCarthy. McCarthy I'm sure would love to have Daniels back in the fold. And it's a guy that probably won't break the bank, cheap deal, has the potential to have a high reward. And you can still draft a guy like Bravion Roy from Baylor or the kid from Texas A&M, Matt Buki, and develop them behind a guy like Mike Daniels. When you look at the ability to spend less than $10 million a season on a guy that's been one of the best interior linemen in the NFL over the course of his career, that's probably more in line with the Cowboys' thinking. The other position the Cowboys should be focusing in on during free agency is safety. Everybody's been screaming for the Cowboys to do something at safety for years, and for years they've done absolutely nothing. Hopefully, Mike McCarthy, Mike Nolan can talk some sense into Stephen Jones and the Dallas Cowboys personnel department. There's also a guy who has a connection to Mike McCarthy who has underperformed relative to expectations as a former first-round pick of Mike McCarthy, and that's Ha Clinton-Dix. Of course, Clinton-Dix has been on 3 teams in the last 2 seasons. He's not exactly the most reliable tackler, as he's missed 8 tackles in each of the last 3 seasons, but he is good in coverage, and he is a consistent playmaker, and it would be very interesting to see the kind of money that he commands in free agency. Again, we're looking in the Cowboys' wheelhouse, which is they don't have a ton of money to spend in free agency, and this isn't exactly a franchise that in recent history has gone swinging big time in free agency. The guy that I like, though, is Adrian Phillips, who's from Garland, went to Garland High School, of course went to the University of Texas, and this is a guy that I was clamoring for the Cowboys to try to make a play on in free agency last season. Now here's the rub on Adrian Phillips. He's got the versatility. In his time with the Chargers, has played free safety, he's played strong safety, he's played linebacker. If I'm the Cowboys, this is a guy that I'm really making a play for. He's obviously from the area, went to Texas, and this is a guy that has been undervalued in the open market in successive seasons that can come to Dallas, play with that versatility, and be a guy that can finally fortify a position the Cowboys have been trying to fortify for years. Mike McCarthy didn't have a ton of say in terms of personnel for the Green Bay Packers. And most people think he won't with the Dallas Cowboys either. But that's not been the case. If you've been paying attention, Jason Garrett and his coaching staff have had tremendous say in terms of players that this team will draft and the direction that they head in free agency. Thank you everybody for watching this video. Make sure to subscribe to the page if you haven't yet already and ring the bell. That way you're always notified of breaking news, latest news and rumors from your Dallas Cowboys. But for now, I'm out. Peace.